You are listening to the Mountainside Podcast, and our guest for this episode is Ryan Maguire. He's a high-endurance athlete competing in Sparta, Hyrox, and obstacle course races around the country. When Ryan is not competing, he spends a majority of his time living off the land in the backcountry using primitive survival skills. He's also the host of the podcast Who the WYLD Things Are. Ryan is a very unique human who I enjoyed sitting down and recording this episode with. He's got an interesting outlook on life, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation.
Another like Donnie-sized dude in there.
Ryan, thanks for coming in, man. Cheers, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for
A
having
little
me.
afternoon cocktail. I always like that. So,
Yeah, just don't tell them what time we recorded this.
oh, nobody knows, dude. It's nighttime. Come on, man. It's like 5 p.m. or something.
That's right.
No, we've had podcasts fairly early in the morning, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie. We've had some whiskeys at like 8, 9 o'clock, right, Jeremy? I think.
Studio's like the airport.
I think Hunter
fine.
McIntyre was one of those, actually. Like when you walked in, you saw the builder over there.
Right. Yeah, Hunter's a good dude. We connected, I think this past year, I kind of came into this OCR Hyrox world kind of by accident. I had some kind of residual fitness, I would call it, from being in the bush, kind of like mountain fit type stuff, and settled down more in Colorado, and Hunter was here doing one of his competitions. It's called OCR Stars. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of that, but yeah, we went out, did a workout together, and that dude, he's a monster, man.
He's a savage, isn't he?
Dude, he is a beast. He just won the world title. The only thing I can say is when I raced against him at the world championship, I got second in the world on this sled push. Like, I did not do that well, but this one item, I got second in the world, and I was like, I can hang my hat on that. Wait, who beat me? And then I look it up. Sure enough, Hunter McIntyre.
Really?
I'm like, that dude.
Yeah, he holds a world record or something in that, doesn't he?
Yeah, world record and the world title. So he's a monster. Don't tell him that, though. He doesn't need to hear it.
He's a great dude, though. We've enjoyed having him in here. Like, anytime hanging out with Hunter is a good time. And we went to a concert together a couple of weeks ago. It was fun. Yeah.
The one in Evergreen, right? Buchanan Park?
Yeah, we did. We kind of helped promote the Hops Drops Evergreen, and I had never seen the California honey drops. Man, they're fucking amazing, dude. That was so cool live. Like at one point, Ben, the drummer, came out and he had like a washboard like around his neck and was playing the washboard for like 3 songs. It was just him and the lead singer. I can't remember his name. I think it might be Ryan. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. But anyways, dude, it was incredible. Incredible live. Like, you can listen to their recorded stuff, but it's nothing. They're one of those bands you have to see live, and just the whole vibe and atmosphere is super cool.
Yeah,
like,
my buddy turned me on to them. I was actually living in California, and I heard about them. Sorry, what is a washboard? You play a washboard? I thought that was for laundry.
So it's like an old, so they have kind of like a New Orleans kind of influence where it's like jazz, R&B, but then they also kind of have like a reggae influence a little bit too. So it isn't considered an actual instrument, but I think it kind of came from like that region of the world, like that deep south, Bayou, Louisiana type stuff. And so, like, maybe they had a banjo, maybe they had this washboard, and somebody started, I think, playing the washboard at some point.
Okay, yeah, I want to see this.
Yeah. See if you can. Oh, there you go. Is that California honey? See if you can find California honey drops playing it, Jeremy.
Is it like percussion or is it like a
No,
guitar?
it's just kind of like a scratching. You know those wood, like, I don't know. I was never really, being in the music business for so many years.
Right.
I wasn't like, I couldn't name all the instruments or whatever, but you know, like those wooden like scratch things, you know, that make it's like a. Here you go. So he has like some things on his fingers. So he's, yeah, this is it.
Oh, that's groovy. He's getting down on that thing. Look at him go.
Yeah.
It's kind of got like a little snare drum kind of feel to it. Like
Yeah.
He's like bongoing it. That's pretty sick.
It's awesome. And then he's got like finger picks too. So he like picks it differently and different fingers. And I mean, he was on that thing for like 15, 20 minutes, dude, just jamming. And then with just the acoustic guitar, these guys are pretty cool, man. They started in like a bus station out in Oakland.
Yeah.
Just outside the Bay. And then now they're playing all these stages all over the world.
They were a Bart band, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in the Bay Area for a while, and the Bart is it'll make a man out of you. There's some wild shit that goes down there, man. Yeah,
I've spent a lot of time in the Bay Area, not so much in Oakland, like, dibble dabbled over there a little bit, but
that's where I bought my truck that I lived in, the first one. I called it Lady May. I bought it in the East Bay, so I always have like a very fond memory of that place, even if it's got some rough edges.
Nice. Did you grow? You mentioned that you lived here for a little while, actually, right in the town where we're in right now, which is Evergreen.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. I grew up here, so that's pretty cool. But where'd you grow up? Like, let's dive into your background a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it. So I moved around a ton as a kid. One of the places I lived was actually, you can hit it from a baseball from right here. Like, if you went on the porch out there and chucked it up this mountain that we're next to, you could hit my house. It would probably knock it over. Like, the house is, it is a piece of crap. I will never say which one because I don't want to offend anyone, but it's got some rough edges.
It's a $750,000 piece of shit right now.
that is right. It is it is a very expensive piece of crap. But we lived here as kids. I was actually thinking about some stories the other day. My dad used to drop us off the back porch, and as well as anyone, there's tons of elk here, just like nowhere else you'll go. They're constantly in your yard and coming up to your door. And he used to drop us off the back deck into elk shit. And it was like, it sounds disgusting now, and you would like get child abuse for it. But back then it was like pretty funny, and it was like a little game we played. So yeah, I lived here. I grew up in Ohio, lived a lot of my life in Ohio. Kind of just a Barefoot Creek kid, loved to fish, loved to play sports and be outside.
You grew up exactly like I did then when I was living here, because I spent so much time in that river and just like chasing elk around and doing, just stupid shit like that. So it was, not stupid shit, but you know what I mean? Like stupid stuff that a kid does, like kind of up to no good, like rolling rocks down hills and, just mountain living.
I think I am still that way. I don't think I really, I got away from it for a little bit, right? And like, you get these classical conditioning situations where it's like, hey, you're good at X, Y, or Z. You should pursue your life this way. And I definitely bought into some of that. Like, you have a natural propensity because you're good at something, but you don't ultimately enjoy it. And so my life has really, it's taken a few different turns, but, my passion has always been this sort of outdoors movement, being in the bush, coming face to face with bears and looking for animals and going fishing, being barefoot. So that's kind of what I do.
No, that's super awesome. So I guess, when did you move out of here and where did you go? And
so I moved from here to Texas and then Ohio. I moved in like 8 different houses in Ohio. I moved to California. I think I'd, probably lived in 15 houses. And then after that, I moved into a truck and lived in like another 20 states. So I've kind of bounced around my whole life.
Nomadic.
Yeah. And then like,
was your dad in the military or something?
No, that's always the question. Always the question.
The typical military kid moves around like that,
Right. Yeah. I spent most of that time in Ohio. Like the majority of those years, and even there we were moving around a lot, I think just because he was bored. I'd probably get some of that. I'm not good at chilling. I'm not like a good person to just like hang out with and do nothing. I'm just not that guy. I'm kind of always moving and bouncing and wanting to do something. Like, my relaxation only comes after I've ran up a mountain and done this and got something else done. I have a hard time, just chilling. And I think that's a lot of the stuff you see online that I share now is like this journey I have, like with becoming chill and like trying to really sit down for 10 to 30 minutes a day and do breath work and meditation, because that stuff does not come naturally at all to
I have
me.
a hard time with meditating. It's not my jam. I just feel, not that I don't think it's not beneficial, I just feel I just don't want to do it.
Right.
Straight up. Like, I don't want to sit there much like you. You know, I'd rather I value time so preciously, I guess. I'd rather spend it, you know, shooting my bow or hiking up a mountain or doing something like that to kind of disconnect or reconnect with nature. It's like, and then when I sleep, you know what I mean? Like, that's about the only downtime. I mean, we sit in here, but this is fun. This is intriguing, right? This gets the brain going. Can have a whiskey. It's kind of like hanging out at the bar.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
it's a good
but
vibe.
other than that, yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from with that. And I'm not knocking meditation. I think it's good for anybody. I just do it different ways.
Sure, yeah. And there's like that dynamic meditation thing. Like you're saying, shooting a bow. I always consider, like, you know, when I go out and shoot, I was just at, what's that spot? Bear Creek. I went to their archery range.
Outdoor range?
Yeah, it was pretty rad. You know, you can take your shirt off, get some sunshine. I was barefoot.
I've never been down there. It's just like a bunch of hay bales set up, and I think you can shoot it like, what, 30 or 40 yards or something?
Anywhere
like
from, like, they have like 4 at 10, maybe 3 at 20, and like they go out probably, to 50 or 60.
Nice.
And it's relatively not crowded, you know. It's like a $10 entry fee, so I think that might bounce a lot of people out. They're like, oh, just find a free spot to shoot.
Right.
Yesterday was pretty wild, though, because I'm driving up. I'm like, oh, it's about to storm. Like, good for me. Everyone's going to leave the archery range. I like running in the rain, so I'm like, I'll go for a run and shoot and do my thing. And then I see on the left side of the horizon the fire start. And I'm like, oh, shit. Right. And so I got into Bear Creek, and I ran towards the fire, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the engines are going off. I'm just like, man, we were doing so good this year. You know, like we were really, Colorado.
We're really getting into it. Actually, the last couple episodes we recorded ago was with a wildland firefighter, and he's got a podcast now, or he's retired now, but man, it's just eye-opening, man. It's crazy, you know, how fast something can go and how fast it can go up, especially around here.
Right.
Jeremy, can you check the sit? I think if you put like Snow Creek, I think it's dubbed the Snow Creek Fire, Snow Creek Fire Sit Rep, I think is what he was telling us, or National Fire Sit Rep. I got you. Yeah, there's some sort of national fire website thing that tells you fires and containments, I think, but I was trying to look it up this morning because I have family that lives kind of close to there, and was trying to make sure that they were all good. But yeah, no, it's I mean, we had one 2 years ago right here on Elephant Butte. I don't know if you're familiar with that, which is an open space area. It's pretty rough.
I remember that.
Yeah, and that was a pretty big scare. I think most of Evergreen got evacuated, like downtown Evergreen, that whole bit, you know, got evacuated, and it burned for a couple days. Luckily we got some rain, and they threw some pretty heavy machinery at it. Like there was some huge helicopters picking up water out of the lake, and I was actually getting stuff out of my house because I figured we were going to get evacuated because I could see the fire from my house, and the helicopter path was like flying over my house, and they were dumping water, you know, and it was just the residual water from dumping it on the fire, but it was like raining at my house just from the helicopters going by, and that's nice. It was like every 5 minutes, man. I think I got some pretty epic video of it, but it's that's part of living up here, right?
Really is,
and I think that's why people need to pay attention to fire bans, number one, especially if they're camping. But you know, I think 60% of all wildfires or something, I think almost 60% of it are naturally caused. So whether it's a lightning strike or something like that, and then the other 30%, and Jeremy, you might have to look this up, I think are human error, whether it's a power line that went down or cigarette butt, right? How
Right.
many times have we seen the side of the highway burning here, you know?
Yeah, it can
Glenwood
be-
Canyon, that's a great example right there, you know?
It can be the butt. It can also be metal dragging, right? Oftentimes with trucks, you're going to have shrapnel scraping against that concrete, and that's going to send
just creating
sparks.
sparks.
In my opinion, and so obviously this is a lot of what I teach in my courses is fire safety, and it's obviously ramped up in the last 10 years or so with the increase in forest fires. And we're not going to go in the other direction. It's just going to continue to be more and more fires. So I think there's a real education gap. A lot of the fire bans are well-intentioned, right? So we're saying, okay, don't have a fire, or if you do have a fire based on this ban, it needs to be in a circle. The issue is we have people that have this false sense of confidence, like, okay, I have a fire here and it's in a ring, I'm good, which is
Right.
not the reality at all. We need to understand wind. We need to understand what kind of debris is circling that fire. You need a 5-foot ring of just mineral earth. We don't want anything to be touching that fire ring that could possibly catch a falling spark, an ember, and start a fire. There's a lot of these small issues that could be prevented, I think, with more education. So I'm hoping that, you know, we obviously touch in it, but not everyone's going to take a wilderness survival course. So hopefully there's some more government funds that go towards true education in this matter, because it really is going to become a bigger and bigger issue over the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, sitting in camp, and if you're having a fire, a lot of the pine and stuff that burns around here, as you know, you put a little too much on and those cinders start to fly up
Sure.
in the air.
Yep.
And if it's windy,
Bye-bye.
it'll carry it. Yeah, you can't, it's not like you're going to be able to catch it or run over there and put it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a big deal. And the trees, pop here, the sap in them starts to bubble and then expand, and then it pops the wood. So
The
you can have
rocks can
out.
pop.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of people will be digging small holes for their fire rings, and you can have roots underground, which will hold on to heat and then ultimately turn
they
into
can
a
smolder
fire.
for up to a year, I think.
long
And
time.
if it's wet, some of those fires down in Florida, I think they smolder for like a year before they're completely out, which is wild.
It is crazy. So put your hand in the fire, and if it goes ow, it's not out yet.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because ultimately we
is
want to
this
enjoy
yesterday,
this, you know?
Jeremy?
Yeah.
Dropping water.
Yeah, it's a Snow Creek.
Oh yeah, I saw these guys.
Those little wind meters are badass. I've had a couple of those.
So that's a little bit. This is like 2 hours after I saw it start, because I was coming down the road when it was starting, and it was tiny, and I was like, this is gonna get out of control quick, I bet. So
it can happen so fast.
so fast, especially with all these.
And if we have,
softwoods.
I mean, luckily yesterday wasn't too windy. I mean, it can get considerably much more windy here. So like, if you get all the right scenarios, you can be in a bad situation in a hurry.
Yeah, and I mean, we have all coniferous forests, so you have soft wood that's ultimately going to go up in flames a lot faster. It's got a lot higher oil continents inside it. So these things burn fast and hot. It's something you gotta look for, but it's not a reason not to go to the bush. Part of that is, we're dealing with is how do we deal with fire bans responsibly as outdoor educators, right? So if there is a fire ban, and I'm leaving next week, we're doing a 28-day course down in Utah. So we'll be on the land for 28 days, no phone, no nothing. Me, 2 other instructors, and then a class of students, and ultra primitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're relying on fire to cook your food. You're relying on fire sometimes to keep you warm at night. And, ultimately we are at the hands of the BLM and whoever has the say, the authority in those areas. So we have to figure out, okay, I'm supposed to teach you how to make a friction fire, but we can't make a friction fire, or maybe we can depending on fire bans. So we're constantly working with local agencies and figuring out what the best way of handling that stuff is.
So what happens if you do enter a fire ban? Do you guys cancel the class at that point, or I mean, is it?
No, we just make do. I've lived in spots out in the bush solo with fire bans and gone without fires and made do. You just kind of got to plan differently, right? So you got to have more insulation at night when you're sleeping, and you got to have a different food source. So,
right. Yeah, no, that's got to be difficult, man. I think fire is the main thing, and it always seems like now when I go elk hunting in September, we can't have a fire, you know. So I'm cooking on like propane or butane or something like that, you know, depending on whether I'm at base camp or a spike camp or something, you know. Yep. And that's, I don't know. It's just not the same, I guess, but
it's not.
But I understand it, man, and I just try to follow the fucking rules. So
exactly,
yeah. You don't want to be that guy, right?
You don't. And there are situations that have happened when people have lit emergency fires for really good reasons to save someone's life, and there are legit reasons. But ultimately, you know, we're trying to enjoy the bush. Everyone is, in the best way possible. So we're trying to take care of it. My thing is, so not that this applies to everyone, but like, so I lived actually not far from here in a cave, and basically had an elk hide on the ground, and I had my fireplace that I built into this little rock, and the fire kept me alive. Like, there's just no arguing about it. Like, without the fire, I would die. So like, when I hear people like getting really angry about no fires, I'm like, it's 60 degrees at nighttime and you're sleeping under the stars. Like, what do you need the fire for right now? Like, there are times where the fire is super necessary, but a lot of times it's just like
it's not a survival, right? Because you're in a badass like Patagonia sleeping bag or whatever it is, you know, a Nemo tent, and you have all this gear, and maybe you're in a camper. I think it's more it's enjoyable to sit around a campfire, though,
the bush
right?
TV.
Yeah. And just watch it, and, you know, be in the middle. It's relaxing.
It's primal, you know. When you stare deep into that fire, you know that there's something deep inside of you that's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And like, if you look up some of the native traditions to it, and I brought this up on that podcast, it's super cool. You can go down a huge rabbit hole in the spiritual meaning to fire, and how, like, some of these tribes, I think it was the Peconi tribe, and I mentioned this just on this last podcast, but they had started fires that their ancestors carried on. So the fire, they never let the fire go out.
Wow.
It was that sacred, right?
That's incredible.
So the fire was always burning. And then when they left whatever region that they were in, because they were nomadic, they were chasing buffalo or their food source or whatever, they would take the fire with them. They made these special, like, they would take like a buffalo horn and then like wrap it in clay, and then they had like all these different layers, and would put little pieces of wood in it, and it would sit in there and smolder.
Sure.
And then they had the warriors, or I guess the most looked up guys too in the tribe, the hunter-gatherer dudes. They were, I guess, just complete savages. They would run 50 to 60 miles to find a new camp, and then start the fire there, and then send smoke signals, and the tribe would go there, which is kind of cool, right? So their whole thing was the fire never goes out. And when they would leave the old place, they'd purposely set a fire because they know, you know, that's kind of what rebirths an area. Like, if you've been in a burn area or something like that, you know, animals love to be in there, especially big game animals, because of all the nutrients, you know, from fresh vegetation and weeds and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of medicinal plants too, and you could probably tell me more about those that come up right after a burn.
Sure, yeah. There's a lot of different plants that have to come through a burn cycle, like big plants, small plants, trees. Redwoods, for example, you know, only grow out of burns. In here, we're actually not 100% sure why the elk like the burn so much. We haven't really been able to track exactly what they're eating there, but we know that the elk are found heavily in the burn areas. I'm sure as a hunter you've seen that. But back on the native thing, I've been reading a lot about the Paiutes, and so the way they would do it to keep the fire going is the fire keeper was like almost a religious spiritual figure. So there'd be a disconnection if all three of us were in charge of keeping the fire going for the next you know, whatever it is, a month, someone's going to sleep, and accidentally we're all asleep together at the same time, and it goes out. Fires go out quickly. If you've ever slept next to one, you know that. But
especially if it's raining or snowing or any of that sort of.
So this guy had a responsibility, and he was kind of a tenured individual in the tribe that would be revered as like a spiritual figure. So I always thought that was cool, like how important the person keeping the fire was. Because you would think like that sounds like kind of like a arduous, like detail-oriented position where he's got to just stay focused on it. Right. But they don't think of it like that. They had a high reverence for the person keeping the fire.
The higher end of the hierarchy, I guess, in a tribal community, right? Those guys that had to carry that and make sure it didn't go out.
Yeah, and the running thing is a cool part of that, right? So it's like this,
it's like primitive ultras, right?
Exactly. This like new like ultra culture. It's like, where is this coming from? But
and this was up in the northern Rockies, right? Like going in, so they would migrate into Canada and then come back down and do like this cycle.
It's gnarly terrain,
and you're talking glaciated peaks and just like that whole.
You're talking about
part of
slides,
the
big avalanches.
There's all kinds of stuff. Jeremy sent me a video the other day of it was like a summer avalanche that I've never seen.
That slide that came down in that valley?
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody sent it to me.
Holy shit, man.
Dude, you know it was
See
messed
if we
up.
can find that, Jeremy.
We just did this double 14er. I posted it today, but we're on a slide just like that. And I came back and got back here to Colorado, and I looked at my phone and somebody sent me that. I'm like, dude, what if that was the same kind of slide? Like, you can look at the conditions, they're super similar,
right?
You just never expect it coming down like that. Okay, so look at what that looks like.
I mean, that's summer, right? Do we know where this was at?
In Alaska, right?
I don't know. The guy's got an accent. I'm not sure.
I wish it had sound. It would be so loud.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
It's so huge.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I'll find out where it is after
you just gotta try to move horizontally if you're up there.
Yeah.
I like it gets super close, and that's when he decides, oh boy, I'm in trouble.
Oh crap, back up. Oh god. Oh dear god.
But it ends right here. Bummer.
Luckily, he had that little shelf right in front of him.
Yeah. So I wonder what happened to him. And
this is just kind of a coincidence, but look at that condition, right? What those mountain conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Now go to that video I posted, and I was like, dude, you need to be careful. 'Cause I'm always out here doing this shit, and definitely too dangerous.
Yeah.
But
I think you have to be educated in some of that too, right? Like, especially if you're backcountry, like snowboarding or skiing or anything like that.
That one there, look at that peak. That's a 14er right there, and that's And we, like the 4th, 5th clip, we walk over a snow slide just like that. I didn't show it in the clip because my mom would have freaked out. Right. I actually slipped down it and had to punch in with both my hands to stop myself. Yeah, right there. So that's the exact same kind of slide.
Shit, yeah.
Oh my god, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
And so right before he took that video, I started sliding down. I had to kind of donkey punch in and stop myself. It's a little sketchy sometimes, but that was a really cool trip there. Beautiful country.
I love being up there, man. It's so cool.
Dude, Colorado's the shit.
Yeah. So did you, from moving around, did you purposely come back here because of everything that you did as a kid, or what was that kind of the catalyst for you coming back to Colorado?
You ever hear that Kenny Chesney song? I think it's called American Kids. It said Mama and Daddy
I don't
put
listen
the
to country that much.
I don't either, but for some reason I like this song. It's like Mommy and Daddy put the roots down here because this is where the car broke down.
Okay.
That's basically what happened. Really? I was living in a truck. I was traveling all over. Me and Donnie were teaching some courses down in Mexico, and then I went over to San Diego, went on a surf trip, and I was just bouncing all over. And then my truck, it was a 1993 Ford F-250. Transmission went out actually near Grand Junction, and I had a bunch of family here, so I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to settle in Colorado for a while. So I've been here for, I don't even know. Terrible with months. I've been here for maybe like 9 months or something.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I've loved it. And then I'm leaving this week. I'll be in the bush for the next 3 months in Utah and western Colorado.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
How did you link up with Donnie? Because that's who connected us. So shout out to Donnie
Yeah,
Dust.
shout out
Thanks
Donnie.
for putting this together, man.
Yeah, great guy. How did I link up with Donnie? I don't know. I think it was probably just some formulation of us seeing each other's stuff, and maybe Instagram probably reached out to him, and we just kind of became friends. And then I was living in the truck, spending a lot of time in Colorado, and I think I might have been. Oh yeah, that's actually what it was. I was here for snowboarding season, and I was sort of living in this cave. And Donnie was like, "Hey, like, do you want to come teach a course with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Like, sounds great." That course ended up getting canceled, but then we planned some more down in the Chihuahua Desert.
Okay.
And yeah, we went down there, taught some courses. That was really great. And yeah, so been friends since then.
He's a great guy, man. He's been a great friend to us here, and just fucking salt of the earth. I love having him in here, man. Like,
yeah,
just a good people.
Yeah, he is, and I think he's got some of that old school spirit in him. He has a good head on his shoulders, and I try to explain this to a lot of my friends. There's this misconception, right, about like primitive survivalists, that they would be dumb bush hippies, right? They just like kind of reject society, and they aren't intelligent. But the reality is that. So consider like a modern topic like finance, right? It's finite. There's this much to learn about finance. Mm-hmm. Well, just learning plants is this big. Just plants. Now that's like one small part of living in the bush. The knowledge base you have to have is so expansive. It's so massive that you could never even learn 100 by 100 foot square. You can never even in your lifetime understand all of the natural systems that happen in a 100-foot square. And so people have this like idea that he's probably a dumb caveman. No, Donnie's really smart. He's got a great head on his shoulders. I'm sure you've seen it. Like you talk with him, you're like, okay, this guy is actually.
He's written 2 books.
He's
man.
really
got him
smart.
Right here.
Yeah, he's not just like a brunt bruiser, which he is a big dude, but like he's a smart guy, and he understands like a lot of life philosophies that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that there's so much more to it, and we've had some multiple people in, including yourself and Donnie and Orion Aeon. Are you familiar with him?
No,
Forge, Colorado.
Oh wait.
Yeah,
does he do he does like the edible plants?
Yeah, edible plants. He does all kinds of stuff. He's an elk hunter too.
Right on.
Yeah, so he's more about foraging and then kind of taking that home and turning it into something, more on the like chef side of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Super cool guy. Super knowledgeable too when it comes to all that, because he's just dedicated himself to understanding that and then also sharing it, which is cool too. So, but yeah, there's so much to that, and I've learned so much from Donnie specifically, or some of these other guys like Orion.
I don't know.
So I'm sorry, buddy. I'm butchering your name right now.
Shout out Orion.
Yeah. But yeah, we I think that we take a lot for granted, and like I guess I wasn't really open to all of that, or it just kind of I did take it for granted until I had the podcast and started talking to some of these guys. And it's always something that's interested me. Like where I was elk hunting last year, I wish I knew more about mushrooms, because I crossed probably 25 different species.
Right.
And I didn't end up taking any of them that I didn't recognize,
Yeah.
So
that's a good move. Mushrooms are dangerous,
You're
especially if you're unfamiliar. A lot higher toxicity than most plants, right?
Right.
So you can catch yourself in a bad spot in the backcountry.
Yeah. I think that whole foraging side of stuff, and just being able to know that you're self-reliant in your own environment, right? And what's out there and what you can eat and that sort of thing. And I've kind of dialed it back recently in the last 3 months to like a primitive diet. So I'm strictly eating meat pretty much right now, but I'm waiting to get some blood work back. But then I would like to add back in some local self-harvested, every time Donnie's in, he keeps talking about dandelion roots, like the tubers and that sort of stuff. And I've eaten dandelion before and stuff like that, but I think it would be cool to get a bit more on the forage side of
Sweet,
stuff.
dude.
And,
Yeah, wild food's
and add
awesome.
that back into the diet, and then it's all, I'm sticking to what I do. But there's some variety rather than just eating steak all the time, which is fucking great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
I'm all on the steak train for sure. You can probably pull it up here. I just did a video of my my bush pizza, as I like to call it.
Oh, I did see that. That was one of the things I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, it's so obviously I eat a lot of wild foods, and I've actually been working as a wild game butcher, so I eat a ton of meat, and then typically meat and fruit. I just love fruit, like obsessed with it. I don't know why. Something inside of me just like craves fruit. But I eat a lot of plants and plant medicine type stuff. So
what is that white
That's
stuff?
that's just flour. So
Okay.
a lot of times I like to run, so getting carbs can be tough in the bush. So you're looking at things like underground storage organs or tubers, anything that's growing under the ground. You can find some good carbs that way, fruit, and then I'll bring a little bit of just very basic bread. So that's just flour and water. Cook it right on the coals. We call those ash cakes. And then you take the dandelion. So if you've ever, you said you've eaten dandelion.
I've eaten the leaves before. I've never eaten the actual flour. But
Right.
that's kind of what you're eating here, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you take the flour and you eat it whole, it's going to taste like shit.
Right.
But if you take the little green part that holds the yellow, you take that green part off, the yellow part is amazing. It tastes super sweet, like it's a really good sweet green. And you just throw that on a little mini pizza and
Nice.
get yourself a little meal. But you can eat the leaves. I eat the leaves. If you're eating the leaves on the dandelion, you want to make sure you get the younger ones, right? Because the older ones are going to get a little bad flavor. But if you can find some really fresh ones, they're pretty solid.
Yeah, that's a natural antacid too. So like if you're having ever like heartburn or any of those sort of symptoms, it knocks it out like that and peppermint for some reason. Those two plants
peppermint's
are
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy all the powerful plant medicines that are out there that exist, and there's definitely a resurgence of all that coming back now, whether it be plants or fungi. So, like people are using dandelion for cancer,
Really?
just that sentence alone blows most people's mind. Yeah. And then you hear about things like turkey tail mushrooms. If you take those, with modern medicine, which is going to destroy the immune system, but ultimately fights disease pretty well, turkey tail mushrooms can dramatically increase your immune system's ability to fight, aka white blood cells, during that chemotherapy period. So
wow,
we're seeing like these amazing uses, and it's not like, oh, I'm a bush hippie, like, eat plants and fungi. Like, no, this is science. Like, a lot of coming back to the earth is actually the real answer. So
yeah, I wanted to dive into some more of that with you because I think it's been a while, and I'm pretty sure it's you that shared it, like some natural sunscreens, because one of the things I hate to do is lather myself in sunscreen or bug spray, right? Like those are the two most grimy feelings to be in the wilderness, right? And it's like, so I know that I think you posted something about that, right? Like you were on a run or something, and can you dive into a little bit of that and what you use? And
I brought you a present.
No shit.
Okay, so this is from our gear line. So that's the shirt.
Oh, nice.
And then this kind of plays into what you were saying. So I'm a big bandana believer, especially in the bush. Yeah, those are the WYLD t-shirts.
Nice.
It says the plan is no plan on the front, kind of the adventure motto out there.
Nice too, man.
Yeah, those are really high quality shirts.
Yeah.
They're what do they call it? It's rated for, like, there's these people that certify it so that it doesn't come from a sweatshop, and it's like ecological.
Really?
I started doing gear basically to promote people going outside. So each time you would wear the gear or any of this and you take a picture and tag me, you get money off any future gear or classes. So my idea with the gear thing is, like, I don't really care about clothes, as you could probably guess, but it was a way for me to incentivize people to get outside. So that was the whole idea.
That's a great idea.
So bandanas, one of the best tools in the bush, like so underrated. They can literally do so many different things, one of which is help carry things, right? So you can use it as a vessel actually for sunscreen. So out here we have prickly pear. You've seen like the paddle cactus. So the guts of the paddle cactus, if you're from South America, they call the outside, they cut it up and they call it nopales, which is like fried cactus. The inside's kind of a gel, and you can actually pack that in here, tie it up, and bring it with you on your hunt or wherever you're at. And it's got a nice smell. It's kind of like a gel, almost like aloe. Yeah. And you'll take that and, you know, just dab yourself with it. What's great is there's this study, I think it came out of Arizona University. High SPF isn't really that applicable to the human skin. It actually doesn't really matter that much. What matters is constant reapplication. So when you're taking that part of the cactus and carrying it with you and able to constantly reuse it, something from the earth that's growing on the ground around you, rather than like this little tube that might run out, you're actually protecting yourself better. So that's one I probably should make a video about it on here. And then the other one that you probably saw was the aspen powder. Yeah. Aspen powder I use a lot running, because you don't have to stop for long and reapply it. So the aspen powder, it's about 10 SPF. So you go on there, just rub a little bit of the powder off, and then I usually just use it for my face. I have like pretty dark complexion, so I don't need it as much on like my arms or stuff, but face and chest, you just rub some of that powder on there. And same thing, you can obviously reapply as you're moving, because there's going to be aspens up at there at high elevation. So you're not worried. You're not being dragged down.
It's super easy to get too, right?
It's
Put your hand on a tree.
That's it. There's nothing else to it. You can't mess it up. And also it's like the wildlife thing. Like animals with really good noses will sniff you out if you're wearing sunscreen from a long way away. If you're getting in the water, maybe you're hand fishing or atlatl fishing and you want to get in there close to the fish. Well, now I'm putting this chemical into the water that's
I've
immediately
noticed, man.
washing
like
off.
I fly fish and stuff, and you can see the oil trail
That
almost
film
going down. I've always wondered, like, how does that impact the environment? You know?
It can't be good.
Yeah. Oh, this is cool, man. Thanks for this stuff. Cheers.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to re-up over here.
Yeah. So if you need more ice, we have.
Oh yeah, here we go. But yeah, I think there's a cool movement happening right now of a lot of people, going back towards the earth and going for more simple answers.
I definitely have. I mean, for me, it was more health reasons and trying to be conscious about health and stuff like that. But I'm also intrigued by just how we lived that long ago, and it really isn't that long ago. 200-300 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty primitive at that point,
Yeah. I mean, people that your grandparents knew were sustenance hunters. That's how I like to think about it. Like it's not really that long ago. People think like, oh, but I always think of it like a abridged dictionary, the giant one in the library. Human history is all of the pages, and then like this way we live now is the last page. We've only been living like this for one page of a massive dictionary. Like it doesn't even matter, if you believe the world's 4,000 or 4 million years old. This lifestyle that we're doing now is super new. And my whole thing, whether it's the clothes, like incentivize and giving people money for going outside, that's my mission in life. My mission is literally to get people to move their body and reconnect with nature, because I don't think there's anything else that's done more benefit for me. And I feel like it can be replicated with everyone that I go through that with. They benefit from being in the bush and moving their body.
No, I have the same connection, man.
Yeah.
Like it makes me just it's the whole reason why I live here. Right? Because you can easily access so much. There's so much public land space that you can enjoy. I want my kids to experience that too. But for me, like mentally, I feel my best when I'm out, on a hike or out on an elk hunt or whatever. I mean, you're facing some adversity out there, so it's not all easy. But how good you feel afterwards, and maybe what you've accomplished, or it's not even that. It's just actually connecting with nature a little bit. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people go into these areas and they take a lot for granted. And I don't think that they're that they're really connecting, right? Because I can't count the times that I've seen guys with headphones. I mean, yeah, they're taking in a beautiful spot, and to each his own.
Sure.
But I think if we can almost connect a little bit further, like just to stop for a minute and appreciate something, you know,
Right.
like I made a post the other day on my personal page just about columbines. Like I was like, I don't stop and smell the flowers very often, but when I see one of these, it's pretty cool because they're fairly unusual, you know, to run across. And
when you see that plant and you recognize it, it adds that whole
So
another
cool.
layer, right? You're like,
Right.
now it's actually a two-way street. Me and nature are interacting instead of like just kind of being a visitor. You're like, oh wait, I'm kind of part of this.
yeah, and if it's giving you something back too in return, if it's something that you can eat or whatever, I mean, it's the whole reasons that I hunt.
Mm.
You know, I'm on this carnivore diet currently, and I haven't gone to the grocery store to buy anything.
Wow.
It's just meat that's in the freezer, you know, which is it's satisfying.
Sure.
Yeah, it's satisfying when I cook it, and I also have a higher respect for it because I think I don't let any of it go to waste. Like I cut a lot of the sinew off and stuff as I'm trimming it before I cook it.
Okay.
But then I'll turn around and cook that, and my dog gets that or something. You know what I mean? So like 0 of it is going to waste.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's the great thing about dogs. You don't have to worry about
yeah.
wasting anything.
Little bears, you know, they're like garbage disposals. you
Yeah,
know,
my dog
basically.
would. My dog.
Dude, are you gonna do organ meat?
I eat organ meat all the time. I'll eat liver
do you
or
take
heart.
that?
Yeah, I do the heart and liver. I don't get too like into the intestines and stuff, but like I don't know. I think I've eaten kidneys before. I don't know. But mostly liver and heart.
Yeah, I didn't know if you took
And
that
the
with
tongue. I'm a big fan of tongue, so
Yeah, I'll do it all, man. As you can probably guess, I've eaten lungs, which is one
Really
that grosses people out. Spleen, kidney. Yeah. I mean, I think
what does the lungs taste like?
chewy, very
Yeah.
chewy. Not the best organ meat,
Okay.
I will say, but
Like heart's amazing.
heart's as good as most steak.
It's as good as a tenderloin. I
Yeah,
think,
people are really
almost.
confused about that. Like it's just false information, I guess, peddled by different people. I don't know how politics work, but like
Right.
the heart is awesome. But you know, I work butchering, and you know, I can get a bunch of steaks out of one animal. So let's sell the steaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get one heart out of a giant animal. So what would we rather say is the good meat to sell? A heart, which we only have one of, or all of these steaks, which we have hundreds of? That's my mind. I think about like while I'm cutting, I'm like, that's probably somebody had
It's
a good
definitely a
idea.
different texture. To me, it's more of a sacred type thing, man. It's kind of part of my ritual of honoring
Sure.
that animal. And it's not the actual consuming of it, but like I'll take a minute when I'm in the middle of field dressing, and I'll hold the heart for a second, and then I pack that in, a separate game bag, the organ meat and stuff.
Special moment.
Yeah.
You ever do blood?
Nah, I've never gotten too heavy into that. I've had some
Blood's good.
Oh God, I'm trying to think. I had like a blood based it was like a broth almost
Okay.
before.
Yeah, you can
Which was
do a
super.
lot
It
of
was in
different.
South America. But
Oh.
yeah.
Okay. What kind of blood was it? Do you know?
I have no idea.
No
Probably
idea.
monkey blood or some shit.
Dog.
Could have been, yeah.
But
Asada.
they the cool thing is you can do a bunch of different things with blood. So like people will drink blood, a lot of people will mix blood with milk, but what I like to do is fry it. You can fry it and it kind of comes out like this scrambled egg texture. It sounds gross because it's not here, but
well, like when you cook a burger or a steak or something
Right.
like that and the blood runs off of it, it turns into like a brown gravy almost or something.
yeah,
right?
exactly. And like, we talk about like, oh, that burger was so juicy, that steak was so juicy, but I would never touch blood. Gross. And
Right.
you're like, wait. You just said the same thing is really cool and then also gross. It's like that's what we're eating here.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have a layer of that on your burger pretty much, right? So,
and it's good for you, and it tastes really good, and it's very versatile. And I struggle with like I have not eaten brains of anything big, but I eat fish brains.
Okay.
I just do fish head stew. That's one of my favorites. Out in the bush, hand fish, pull out a fish, cook it, and then like after you're done, you just take the head and the skeleton and put it in a little cup and just let it roast over the fire, and that's your midnight oil. It's got all this
Yeah, I
fat.
cook them with the heads on.
Okay.
And as soon as the eyes turn white, you know that they're done, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then I just when I take that, I just leave the head like in a pot. And then, you need a fat supply to sleep and move. So like when you get that late at night, it can really help with your body's ability to thermoregulate. And I think that's the biggest thing that people haven't mastered about the bush is thermoregulation and thermodynamics. Especially like without a tent and a sleeping bag. And that's a lot of what we're teaching in our classes, whether it's WYLD or BOSS, which is the school I'll be teaching for, coming in a week or so. A lot of what we're teaching is keeping people warm using just the natural materials around you. So, if you're going out in the bush and you don't have a tent or a sleeping bag and you've got to sleep at 10,000 feet altitude, how are you going to stay warm at night? And I would say 99% of people would say, I don't know. So that's a big concern.
No, and it's good to know that you have that in your back pocket in case you've ever put in a situation where you need to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or you're testing yourself. I think that's kind of like is that kind of the driving force behind you and maybe like what Donnie does sometimes? It's just, hey, I'm going out for 30 days or whatever with just myself.
Yeah, I think I've always been somebody that, likes to accomplish and push myself. I think it's, maybe equal parts nature connection and also how far can I push my body. Some trips go more one way, some trips go more the other. I don't think I've actually announced this yet, but next summer, this is the official announcement right here. Next summer, I'm going to try and do the first/fastest barefoot run of the Colorado Trail.
Really?
So it's 500 miles and 90,000 feet of elevation. So I'm going to try and run that barefoot. And that one I would say is more like pushing yourself. There will be a lot of nature connection.
Do you run barefoot mostly? Like I've seen you rock climb barefoot. Which
yeah.
I thought was...
I'm barefoot right now for those who can't see. But actually I did bring my dancing shoes, my dress shoes, my sandals. I do like being barefoot, definitely. There are certain times where I need to wear shoes, but I just like the way everything feels barefoot or in minimalist shoes. Even when I'm like racing, like when we went to Vegas for the High Rocks World Championships. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, Hunter, that was the one I got to listen to. I had to wear shoes, right? But I try to get more minimalist style shoes because that race is on concrete. That was actually the only time I've ever raced on concrete. I typically am running in the trails. So, yeah, I guess that's a long-winded answer of sometimes I wear shoes, sometimes I don't.
Right. And I've heard people say that you feel more connected to nature or something like that when you're barefoot. Do you have some of those feelings? And
yeah, I mean, I just think any gear you can get rid of, at least personally, the more connected I feel, the more I feel part of the environment. So when I pretty much typically just have shorts on. Sometimes I'll tie like a piece of cloth to hold like a water bottle or a little bit of rations. And then that's all I'll bring is basically like a knife and a bottle. And that's when I feel most connected, is like when I have the least stuff separating me from the environment. I feel most like an animal. I feel like I'm out there to be in that moment and experience what's around me. I'm not, necessarily looking at my phone or getting human influence. I think human influence is one thing I talk about a lot. There's a tiny, tiny percentage, and maybe you're one of them. There's a tiny percentage of people on this earth, particularly in America, who have ever spent 24 hours alone with no human influence. What that means is no book, no Netflix, no other people. So I mean just you and your thoughts for 24 hours.
Yeah.
The natives used to sit in a circle or like sit alone in a circle of rocks, and they would refer to it as vision questing, which is making a big comeback now. But essentially, when you are alone and you have no book, nobody talking to you, no music, your brain does this thing. It's almost psychedelic. You start remembering these things of when you were a child and you were mean to a kid at a barbecue in 3rd grade, or somebody you haven't talked to and you really need to tell them like how grateful you are that you met them. And your brain does all these crazy things that you don't have access to when all of this is happening around you all the time. it just changes the way you think.
Right.
And there are some hunters who have experienced it.
Oh, I've experienced it. And I've experienced it on the level that I've had, hallucinogenic almost dreams, right? Like out of body experience that were so vivid that 3 or 4 days into an elk trip and I haven't seen anybody, I haven't talked to anybody. And all of a sudden I'm having this dream that's along the lines of a DMT or an ayahuasca type adventure, right? Like that vivid.
It's crazy.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I enjoy going too, is that disconnect, because a lot of times where we go, now granted, I do have stuff that I can look at. I can take a picture. Sometimes I'm navigating from my phone, marking some waypoints with, a satellite deal. So I do have some technology around me, but I tend not to use it, or I put it in a power saving mode. So there's no real concept. And then to have, I think one of the things that I hold most sacred in that time is there's no set schedule. Like, hey, I don't have to be anywhere by noon, right? Yeah. I don't have to be to the studio by 1 p.m. to do a podcast. Like, it's literally sun up to sundown and trying to accomplish one thing.
Right.
That's it.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. It's and maybe find some snacks along the way or whatever, or
get a squirrel.
Yeah. So that's, I think that's, and it's a huge reset for me.
Yeah.
Huge, and I think it makes you appreciate what you have a little bit more. Yeah. It makes me more connected to family because I realize that I miss them more, right? Sure. When you do have all these distractions, maybe you don't realize you miss somebody.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at hot chicks all day on Instagram, right? Shaking their asses, you might not miss your wife.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bizarre thing, and I think so. I get a little mini dose of that with the meditation breathwork thing I was telling you about. So I think what you were hitting on there is like the gratitude. Like when I come off of my solos, I usually call my mom right away, and I'm like borderline emotional, like, "Hey, Mom, I love you." Like, don't tell you enough, whatever. When I do, so have you heard of Wim Hof?
Yeah, I know kind of who he is, but you might need to elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, so Wim Hof, super legend. He does cold exposure and breathing therapy. Lost his wife. She killed herself, and his life has been about like how to, fight things, whether it's a physical ailment or mental depression, stuff like that, using cold treatment and breathing techniques. So I do a lot of cold treatment most days, and then I do breathing every day. So there is a video online. You could put Wim Hof breathing right there, method breathing. The 49 million views 2 years ago. It's him right there.
49 million views.
Awesome. So I do some version of pranayama breathing like this every single day. And what it does is that, that like gratitude thing that hits you when you're alone and like nothing else is happening. That is what I get from this.
Really?
And I will send text immediately after. So you get high, like really high from it. There was a comment on here the other day that I saw that got a bunch of likes. It said, "I can't believe the government hasn't outlawed this yet because of how high I am." But
really?
It's incredible what your
so
breath
you're
will
doing
do.
This while you're doing a cold plunge, so like an ice bath, or
it could be while I'm getting cold. A lot of times I'll just lock my room. I always want to make sure that there's no possible way someone can come in and distract me because I'm like in my mode. So I would say just lock yourself somewhere. He actually says not to do it in water. I always do it in water. If you're watching this, don't do it in water. You can drown. But I don't really push my breath holds while I'm in water because part of this is breath holds. But yeah, you can do it in the cold water. You can do it in your bed.
So explain the sequence to me, because
Sure.
I actually started doing something similar. I've been listening to, have you heard Andrew Huberman at all?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think
Fucking
Huberman's the
amazing,
man.
Right? So yeah, well, I want to hear your side of it first, and then I'll tell you where I'm at. So what does a cycle look like for you, and how long does it take, and what's happening? Yeah,
so I actually, so this whole thing, a little background, this whole thing started, I was going on a trip in the bush 2 weeks, and this guy, as we're driving our van up here, I'd never met him in my life, he's breathing, and it sounds like he's snoring while he's awake. Fast forward, this is my friend Guy. He's one of my role models, he does this every day, and he was like way ahead of the curve with all this stuff. He's 63 years old. He just learned Japanese. He skateboards and surfs every day. He's like the biggest legend I've ever met, but he was really adamant about meditation and this breathing stuff. And so I started trying it, and essentially the way like that video works, you'll do either 30 or 40 breaths. So that would be a round. So one breath would be a huge breath in, like max breath in, and then just kind of letting it go. You're not pushing all your air out. So eventually after 30 or 40 breaths, you're over oxygenating. So your entire body is like just filled with oxygen. And then say that 30th breath, you let it out and you just hold. And so that video would do...
So you hold your breath?
You just hold your breath.
Okay.
So that video would do, the first round is 1 minute, the second round is 1.5 minutes, and I think the third round's 1.5 minutes. And he'll like prompt you in there.
So this is something that takes 4 minutes.
Each round, the whole video is 11 minutes. And I'm like, there's no excuse. Like, I could piddle around doing nothing for 11 minutes. Like, there is no time excuse that I can say, oh, well, I don't have time to do my breath work today. It's like, that's just, you're full of shit. Why are you lying to yourself? It's like, just knock it out. And it always, I've never once regretted it. I've regretted not doing it, but I've never regretted doing it.
That's awesome. No, I do something that's kind of similar to that, and it's a long, what is it called? And I picked this up from Andrew Huberman, so shout out to him. And if you're interested in, he's a neuroscientist, but he's got this cool edge because he's a former like punk rock, skater type dude from the Bay Area. He was a professional skater, I think, for a while, and just super great guy. But, just what he studied from the neuro standpoint and how different chemicals are released in your body and all this sort of different stuff. Since I've changed my diet, my sleeping habits have been awesome.
Right.
It's been incredible. That's been changing. It's been a drastic change. But then listening to Andrew Huberman, I started something, just kind of a bit of a ritual, and kind of around the same time for some reason, is I was like, I'm just going to fucking try this. Like, I love coffee. I love, an Americano or some sort of espresso or something like that. Fucking love it. So my old routine used to be get up, make coffee, drink coffee, then go outside and do something, or then go and work out. But what I've done is I've reversed that order. So the first thing that I do when I wake up is I go outside and I get 5 to 10 minutes of natural sunlight. And it's ideal. I try to get up when the sun's coming up. And it's something about the yellow and blue contrast. And you can't get it unless you're seeing a sunrise, right? But it sets off dopamine and all these different chemicals in your body that we've been doing primitively for hundreds of years, or thousands of years, millions of years, who knows? But anyways, it makes me feel great.
Sure.
And you know what's funny? All of a sudden, I don't need coffee. I drink coffee now, maybe at 10, 11 o'clock. I've already worked out. I've already done all that. And then it's just like, it's a bonus to get me through the day. And then I try to do that as the sun's setting, which who doesn't appreciate a good sunset, right?
That's
and
amazing.
we've been getting stellar ones lately. And it takes 5 to 10 minutes. So there's that portion of it. And I've noticed a change in my attitude drastically, just in the way that I feel going throughout the day. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe, maybe there's nothing to it, but there's some science behind it.
Yeah.
That your brain releases all these different chemicals, dopamine and adrenaline, or what causes adrenaline. I don't know. I'm no neuroscientist.
Yeah. Epinephrine and norepinephrine.
There you go. Yeah. And the other thing too that I've been doing is it's an NSR yoga or something. Have you heard of this? Okay, so it's along the lines, I think, of kind of what you were talking about with breath work. But when I'm laying in bed, and I don't do the whole cycle, because you're supposed to listen to like a YouTube thing, and then like it's 20 minutes long or 15 minutes long. So it's like a deep rest for your body and your nervous system through breathing techniques and awareness. You're supposed to do it laying down or like in a sitting someplace where you can relax, right? And
similar to the Wim
try
Hof.
to be like, the ideal spot would be a float tank, right?
Okay.
And do an NSR yoga type thing. I think that's what it's called. But anyways, I've listened to like one or two just to get the general concepts down.
Yeah.
But now when I go and lay in bed, I do this breath work for 5 minutes, and it is totally relaxing, and I get sleep like you wouldn't believe. So it's just you're taking a huge deep breath in for about 10 breaths in, but then letting it all out completely. And if you don't push all the air out of your lungs, you won't feel this. But your body goes into a total relaxation. Like it makes all your muscles decompress. And then at one point you stop breathing. Like you notice your breath, right? So you do that 10 times and then you just breathe normal, noticing your breath. Mm-hmm. And then you go back and you do that cycle again. And the second time around, it's even better. And then the third time at the end of that cycle, in between just normal breathing and cycling back into deep breath in and out, you hold your breath. Okay. Like for basically as long as you can. And it's like a reset to your body. I don't know. It's pretty relaxing, man. You almost get like a euphoric type of feeling.
Absolutely, yeah. And I like that both Wim and Huberman have done a good job at this, which is let's back this up with science. So that's why I got a lot of respect up front for Wim, because I naturally don't believe anything anyone tells me. I'm like, I just like, that sounds like bullshit. Yeah. And then, I actually read some of these peer-reviewed studies that Wim Hof was doing, and I was like, okay, there's probably something to this. And then they were also talking, I listened to a Huberman podcast. He was talking about the dopamine and different hormone receptors and effects of breathwork / it was interesting. He actually called it a gratitude practice. He said a gratitude-focused practice has physiological differences on the body. He's like, they're doing studies with it. You can actually see what happens. And it makes sense. It's like when you sit down and think about all the things you're grateful for, you feel better. It's like that for me, that's not a stretch. Like that's just the reality is like people that are really happy people tend to be really grateful. It's like that whole
5-minute journal thing. Have you ever seen one of those? You know, where you like, yeah, no, it's if you think about it on a regular basis, you're going to be more grateful for it. It's pretty, it's kind of common sense, right? Like, and I think you have to think about what you're grateful for before you can actually have gratitude for it.
And that is part of the nature thing, right? It's full circle. You have to be in nature to understand that gratitude for nature.
More with
it's like you're not going to be thankful for the mountains if you never go in the mountains and you just stay in the city. You're never going to experience that world and have that gratitude. So I think that's
and that's one reason why I've taken a little bit of a different approach here too, I think, is to help try to, like yourself, try to help educate people. And I'm no expert in fucking anything, first off, but like try to help educate people on how to connect with nature and how to treat it a little bit more so they can get out and enjoy it more. And I think the more that you enjoy it, the more respect you'll have for it, right? Is kind of the premise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have that same thing, and then for me it's been stripping away things. Like the less gear I have, like the more in tune I get. Like I think that's why I love hand fishing now so much. Like my life, I grew up, I think about it often. I was fishing all the time and always thinking about what gear is going to give me the most fish, right? It's like this constant obsession that I was just thinking about the rod and the bait and the tackle. And now it's like I can go into a stream and use my hands and pull a fish out. And I'm like, that is just like a different level of connection for me that gets me so stoked to go do it.
That's super cool. Dialing it back as much as you have as far as not taking stuff out with you, safety gear. You carried a knife and a water bottle basically when you are out most of the time. Have you ever had any close calls or any time where you've had to call for some sort of help or any sort of situation where you thought, hey, I could be in some serious trouble?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I never, ever want to encourage people to be dangerous. I do think that it's very important to know your limits. And so for me, it's been this kind of thing where I started, so good example, me and Donnie, we talk about the first skill. Donnie talks about stone, right? Points. He talks about being, kind of the first skill for humans. That's where he started. For me, my first skill is moving on my feet. And that's how I think of early African plains hunters, they would persistent hunt. We can run further than any other animal on Earth on a hot day. That is our only natural advantage as humans. So my whole thing was, let me build up this range where I can run really far on very little food or water. And so that was the focus for me in the beginning, was how can I get as deep as possible into the backcountry? Well, it's got to be on my feet. Okay, how do I build up to that point? And eventually, you know, you use less and less gear. I was never really a gear guy in the beginning because I didn't have any money. Still don't have money, but yeah, I definitely progressively overloaded, right? It wasn't like I just decided one day, I don't know anything about the bush, I'm just going to run, you know, 100 miles in the desert and just see what happens. There's a steady buildup of knowledge and ability there. So
yeah, no, so do you run, when you say you run long distances, are you running ultra type distances or marathons, or do you track any of that?
Yeah, so I mean, I've started kind of racing just like as a side effect. I raced in a Spartan race this year, got second in that, and then raced in High Rocks World Championship, which I had never done High Rocks before this year, and qualified for World Championships, which was a cool experience.
That's
awesome. Definitely out of my wheelhouse, but I really enjoyed it. So I guess I've kind of built up a fitness base training in the mountains. Most of it is like I'm just carrying rocks up mountains, lifting up heavy rocks, picking up trees. I just got a membership.
I've seen you doing pull-ups on trees before.
Yeah, do a lot of pull-ups on trees. I just try to add that to my nature connection thing. But yeah, it's just been a build-up, and I have done a lot of ultra distance stuff. I raced in the Ultra World Championship for Spartan last year. That was a 24-hour race. Whoever runs the furthest wins. That was in Telluride, so
wow,
it was pretty brutal. It was everyone does 9 miles, and then for the rest of 24 hours.
Now, is that an obstacle course built in too? So you have there's some like lifting or pulling or Spartan's crazy.
Yeah.
There's even some weapon stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, so everyone runs the first 9 miles. This is for the 24-hour championship particularly. And then after that, it's a 6-mile loop for the rest of the time. And during those miles, let's say 6 miles, there's like 25 obstacles. So one of the obstacles was carry a 50-pound bucket down the mountain and back up. That was one obstacle. So like while you're running all these miles, you've got to do all this crazy stuff. You got to throw a spear and hit a target. And any obstacle that you fail, you have to pay in burpees. So it's like you miss an obstacle, you got to do 30 burpees. So it's Spartan's pretty brutal for sure. But it's one of those things. It's like doing hard shit is so good for you. Like in the moment, yeah, it's like, this kind of sucks. You might think to yourself, what the hell am I doing? But after it, you're like, I am a monster. I'm a beast. I'm capable. And I'm ready to sign up for the next one. You know, that's kind of the feeling you get.
So are you doing that this coming year? Or?
That's a good question. I'm kind of in a lull right now with racing. So my life is like back and forth between like, do I want to really focus on the racing and fitness racing aspect, or do I want to spend all my time in the bush doing survival and teaching survival? And there's obviously crossover there, but you gotta pick sometimes. So the next 3 months I'll be in the bush basically. I'm going to teach a 28-day course, and then I found this cave that I'm going to try and move into. And then
you got to sign a lease?
Yeah. Apparently the landlord's like kind of tough. He's a pack rat. So there's a bunch of pack rats living in there. I'm going to smoke them out. But
nice.
Yeah, that's my plan right now. And then I got to be back here for a wedding, my sister's wedding, which is actually across the street.
Oh, no shit.
It's what is it, Black Forest Road up there towards Conifer?
Brook Forest.
Brook Forest, yeah.
Yep.
And so I'll have to be back here for that. That's the end of elk season. So I'll elk hunt on the way back. And then once I get back here in the fall, it'll be training time. I'm going to do a double race. So I'm going to do High Rocks in LA, and then I'm going to run Spartan Elite the next morning. So I'm going to do back-to-back High Rocks and Spartan. Shout out to Chris Rogloski.
So in the same day, you're going to do?
One's the day before.
Okay.
So the next race, back-to-back days.
Wow.
There's a girl who actually is the High Rocks world champion, the version of Hunter, the girl version. And she did back-to-back races like that. And I was like, that's cool. I want to do that. So I had her on my podcast, and she's been
Nice.
inspiring a lot of
What's her name?
Chris Rogloski.
Okay.
She actually just moved to Colorado. You guys gotta have her on. She's
Okay, yeah, we'd love to have her on.
super rad, like badass chick. But yeah, she's dominating like the fitness racing world right now, and she's mountain tough. Like she asked me to do this Nolan's 14. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's 14 consecutive 14,000 foot peaks, and you like kind of do it continuously. A lot of people do it as like the fastest known time in FKT, and it's like 95 miles and I don't know, 60,000 feet of elevation or something. It's just
sounds brutal.
She does a lot of like the big mountain races. So, and she just moved to, I don't know, Boulder, Colorado Springs, one of those, somewhere around
Super
here.
cool.
So yeah, she's a tough chick.
That's awesome. So you have your own podcast. Let's talk about what you guys cover on there, and it's kind of what we've been talking about, right? Like,
yeah, I think the way you structure this is kind of similar to the way I have started my.
It's kind of free form, right? Like,
yeah,
I didn't send you a script and like, hey, these are the questions I'm going to ask you, or yeah.
No, there's no scripting, and mine's kind of just roll with the dice, and yeah, you always.
It's more of a hangout.
You
like,
want to
I'm just getting to know you.
Yeah, but you want to like be like, okay, who's this person? Like, gather what you can in a quick session, and then just hang out with the person and kind of chop it up. This, first of all, is super sick because this studio is like something I would dream of. This is awesome. You guys did a great job here, but thanks, man. Mine started, I felt like everyone was really down in the beginning of COVID. Like everyone I saw, everything was so negative. And for me, COVID was great. I was out in the bush, just running around, having a great time. And I'm like, how do I spread some positivity and like hopefulness in the world? And so my idea was like, let's do a virtual podcast. I don't have to get in front of anyone, no disease concerns. And so I started chatting with my friends. Donnie was episode 1, Matt Graham, just like a bunch of these,
cool.
Outdoor legends, whether they're survival or fitness racing. And yeah, just people selfishly I wanted to talk to. Like people I was like, I would like to
That's pretty much what this is,
yeah.
You know what I mean? As much as we're like trying to provide something, but for me it's more of a selfish thing. Like I want to talk to interesting people. I want to hang out with interesting people. I enjoy the time that I spend in here. Like it's very seldom that I walk out of here and go, God, that sucked.
Yeah.
It's like never, right, Jeremy?
I thought you just want to hang out with me more.
It's well, that's an excuse for that too. I mean, we do have a mini bar here, so
it's true.
Yeah. No, it's
it's always
I think that there's maybe been one or two that have been like didn't go well or something,
Sure.
but it wasn't like a bad experience. I still would take that experience regardless, Maybe I just didn't hit it off with somebody the right way, or I said something to offend somebody the wrong way or something, But
but
that's part of conversating, right? I think that we're so caught up in this, right, these days with a phone that this, even though there's all this technology around us, there's multiple cameras in here, we got microphones and headphones on and everything, we're still having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lost art, man.
It is, especially
really,
the long form version of it. I actually am surprised. I don't even I haven't noticed the mic or the headphones really. Like
you really don't after a bit. It's just kind of
it sounds really clean, and compared to, so I've been doing all mine. You guys can look it up. It's called Who the WYLD Things Are. The WYLD is WYLD. So Who the WYLD Things Are has been great, but part of me is like, I really want to be, it started in COVID, so it was all virtual, but I would really like to like sit down like this, where it's like straight up person to person communication. The issue just becomes like, some of those folks, live hundreds of miles away. Like, how do I?
Well, and that's one reason why we have dove into the virtual world, because it was like, I was trying to set stuff up to where we were either going to travel to them or they were going to travel to us, and it just got to be too much sometimes. I mean, we still do try to pursue that, but it's, because in person is so much better. But at the end, I didn't want to miss out on a conversation or somebody that I really wanted to talk to by having that barrier up there. And we have an awesome platform to do it on, so we can talk after the podcast. I can give you all that information. It's Riverside FM.
Okay.
Very inexpensive. It does some editing for you. It's pretty sweet, man.
Sweet. Yeah, I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, it's way better than like Zoom or one of those things. It's a pretty incredible platform. So I was also kind of waiting for quality to come along, because that was a big thing to me, is like I didn't want to have like, when it sounds like somebody's in their bathroom recording like on their iPhone or something, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Or just the internet lag, that was hard. That's a hard thing to get over. It's not the same as you and I sitting here. Plus,
Definitely.
we can have a whiskey together.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, in person, this is a pretty easy place to lure people to.
Mm-hmm.
There's
a better
we're not
connection
far from anywhere.
There's a way better connection too. Like,
yeah,
it's like if you're staring at the screen, it's almost like I get more in my own head. It's like, okay, am I hearing what he's saying right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what am I going to say next? But with this,
it's awesome.
I'm just listening.
Yeah,
and talking.
Yeah,
I'm trying not to interrupt.
Always wanted to bring mine to this level, and you guys probably sell yourself short, but this isn't just like any podcast. Like, you guys do a really good, like, this is a really professionally done podcast. Like, this place is legit. Like, it's not.
Thanks, man. We've put some work into it, but I think it's also at the same time I'm trying to do it at that level. Like, I want to be at that professional level of it so I can do more of it and spend more time doing this, so because I genuinely enjoy it, and I'm genuinely curious to find out about people like yourself and people that interest me. So that's where the selfish part comes in.
Yeah, dude, I just like, who do I want to talk to?
Other people like listening to it. That's the crazy thing, right? Like, I was like, who the fuck would want to listen to my dumb ass? But it's not that. It's more about the people that I have in the guest seat,
Yeah,
and the conversations that we have.
That's it.
That's kind of what I figured out. But
we call it the KPI, the key performance indicator. That's what I always talk about. When I'm thinking about my podcast, is like the most important thing is who's sitting across from me on my podcast. Like, I've been really, really lucky with the guests I've gotten, and most of it's just because I will reach out to anyone. Like, I'm a doofus already. Like, I don't care about embarrassing myself. So I've reached out to huge A-listers all the way down to like friends and everyone in between. And like, some people have said yes that I would have never expected. And you just kind of have to have that, like, yo, do you want to sit down and have a conversation? And most people are pretty nice and just want to like connect and get to know each other.
And I think it's a great way for people to portray themselves if they're true to themselves and not putting on some sort of facade. Because you'll be figured out pretty quick on a podcast or multiple podcasts or whatever. But like, this long form conversation is really, I've said this before. I think it's the best form of social media to represent yourself much more than a photo or whatever. Like, I can look at your Instagram page and I'm like, oh, Ryan looks cool. He does all this cool stuff. But like, until I don't have this connection until we actually sit down.
That's right.
And, this isn't the whiskey talking. This is, for real. Until we sit down and have a conversation, you look somebody in the eye and share a moment with them then, right, too. And then it's almost like it builds a bond, too, because like probably 98% of the people that have sat in that very seat that you're in, I'm now friends with.
Right.
So now I have 98 more people to keep up with and like, hey, check in, it's like, podcast or not, I'm still talking to a lot of these people on the phone, or we are helping each other out, or whatever, or just checking in, like, and that's kind of cool.
That should give people a little bit of hope for humanity, like, with all this like BS that like we hear about. I think podcasts are typically a very positive notion, it's like people talking as friends, like a real stripped down version. There is no script. There is no, I just met you outside on the deck the first time. I'm like, yeah, it's just two good guys hanging out and getting to know each other.
And sharing your experience too.
Yeah.
Like, cause I don't think that you can dive into it. Like, if you're in a crowded bar room or something like that, right? Like, there's all these distractions, or if you're at a coffee shop, I think that it's just much more private. And I feel like even though there's, hundreds of people listening to us, or thousands, or however many it is, right, that download this thing, there's something about, like you said a minute ago, you don't really notice the microphones or the headphones. It's more like we're having a conversation. Like, I don't ever really think about like, oh fuck, what am I going to sound like? Yeah. I mean, I do. When I go back and listen to something, because I do some of my own audio editing, to critique myself. Like filler words drive me nuts, and
Yeah.
I'm really bad about it. I'm really bad. I've done it to make myself better. So yes, I guess I do critique myself. But other than that, like I don't really think about like not speaking about how I feel or
Yeah.
what I want to say or what I want to convey. I'm not trying to like, I wonder what people will think of this. I'm just talking.
Yep.
Just talking to you.
For sure.
Yeah.
I dodged your one question earlier that I just realized. Have I had any close calls? And Jeremy, I don't know if you can pull this up, but there was a video I put on YouTube. That's kind of a funny one. My YouTube is WYLD TV, WYLD RYDE TV. There was a good black bear encounter that I got. So instead of RIDE, it's RYDE. And then you could just go to YouTube. It might all be one word. But yeah, so basically the back story of this, there was this trip I was going on. Nope, this is some...
Oh, this is a rock band.
These guys have actually
This is
emailed
like
me.
Axl Rose right there. Oh, really?
Yeah, they've actually emailed me. They're like, yo, why'd you steal our name? I'm like, I didn't know you exist. I swear to God it happened. They're like a cover band. But
Oh my God, that's all that's coming up.
so if you go to YouTube and you put WYLD TV as one word, it'll come up.
I got you. All right. We'll have to trim this up a little bit.
But yeah, so essentially we were going on this trip. My best friend Daryl was coming with me. He had never done a backpacking trip or any trip in the bush. We were going through the rainforest, so I was like, okay, let's make this even. You know, it was a long distance trip, and he's from Detroit. He's never been in the woods. I was like, okay, I'll do it barefoot, and it'll slow me down, and our pace will be kind of, you know, we'll be in good pace together. So I did a 50-mile barefoot trip with him, and I ran into a bear. Put 50-mile barefoot. These are all just random videos of mine. There's my old truck right there.
Nice.
Yeah, that thing was epic.
Those
We called
old
it-
square body Fords are
F-250
fucking
bullnose,
awesome,
dude.
man.
How beautiful are those?
That's so awesome. This is the best era.
I miss that car every day. I made a huge mistake by selling it, but that's what you do when you're poor. 50-mile barefoot.
Bare knuckle.
Bare knuckle. That's me, baby. That's my other one.
Where is it?
I thought I had it on here. But essentially I run into this bear, and we got super close to it. It was eating this dead horse. Let me think about
What?
that's interesting. It's not coming out. Try do rainforest,
Maybe
50-mile
YouTube pulled it.
rainforest?
or maybe it's 40-mile. Maybe it was a 40-mile trip. Maybe that's why. Or yeah, maybe YouTube pulled it. I hope they didn't, but they definitely could have, because I don't ever. Nope, neither of those. Interesting.
What if you just type in barefoot? Will it come up then?
Yeah, but you have to have WYLD TV on there.
Right. Yeah. WYLD TV barefoot. Maybe it'll bring up all the barefoot.
It's gonna bring up my earth. Oh, there it is. Bear eating a horse. Top one. They got a lot of barefoot stuff. It's like maybe halfway into the video. You can fast forward. Yeah, try clicking. Nope, back before that. A little bit more. Stop. Yeah, like right there.
So who's filming? Are you filming a lot
I
of this
filmed all this
yourself?
myself and edited it. So can you give us volume
Yeah.
and go back like maybe 10 seconds? That's my friend Daryl. Go 30 seconds back. Sorry, I haven't watched this in a while.
Hey, Jeremy, can you roll your mic around to the audio? Where
yeah, hang on a second.
Where it's coming out, so it...
That's me doing like the cross your chest.
Holy shit. Oh, fuck.
Oh, that was right after it. We just missed it. Go back like another couple minutes. Sorry, I haven't watched this in a while. You can go back more. There's a little build up to it. So basically, these people were like, "Yo, there's this like."
There it is. Oh my God! What?
Yeah, it's wild.
So how did this horse... It must have fallen down.
I got him. Yeah. that thing over. Hey, bear. Let's do it. All right, here we go.
Hold on.
This is the joys of mountain internet.
Yeah, right. You're good here.
How's your pee? Dude, it's pretty important. You need to camel up, get some water in it.
That place is beautiful. That
Fucking bear.
Where is that?
That's Pacific Northwest.
Oh, I love it up there, man.
Like this.
So my friend was like, "We're not gonna walk past this bear, are we?" I'm like, "Oh, we are."
Coming up there. Got that thing on me. Daryl has that thing on him. That thing.
He has some
So
bear spray.
Daryl's from Detroit? Is that what you said? Yeah.
He's got bear spray. He's like, "I got that thing on me."
There you go, bear.
So that you can see him right there. He's staring at my face.
Yep. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. There you go.
It's hard to tell here because it's on a GoPro. We're like 8 feet away right there. Like he's in that room.
Right.
Dude, look. How did that happen?
All right, so you want to, I guess it's like tinfoil hat. I don't know. But I'm thinking, so we were way in the bush. And did you grow up with horses or anything like that?
I grew up around horses. We never had them
Okay.
ourselves, but I grew up with around a lot of them, yeah.
And so like when they have like a broken leg, you pretty much put them down. It's just kind of the nature of the beast with
They
a
don't
horse.
survive a broken leg
They don't.
very often.
And so when you're in a situation like this and you're trail walking, let's call it, 40 miles away from civilization, and even then you're at like a town that's like a super remote town, you got to put the horse down,
Yeah.
to honor the horse. You can't let them just sit there and suffer. So I'm thinking they were out there, shot the horse, kind of shot him and pushed him right next to the trail because they couldn't move him.
Yeah.
And then that bear got on it and was like getting territorial. And thank God there was one other person out there that was walking back, and he's like, "Yo, 3 switchbacks up from now, you guys got to cross this bear." And he's on a dead horse, like guarding the food. And I'm like, "All right, Daryl, you ready for this?" Because before that point, he's like, "Dude, I'd love to see
And this is Daryl's
a bear."
first time in the woods?
Like literally his first backpacking
Wow.
trip ever. It was. I mean, look at that stuff.
Dude, look
That's
how
Did he
epic
have a
that
good
is.
time?
It's insane.
oh, dude,
Yeah.
he loved it. I mean, this is like
Awesome. I'll have to go back and watch
super
this whole
epic.
thing.
And I met the girl in this right there. Her name's Lauren. I met her on the trail. She was the one that had crossed the bear by herself. She was a girl solo backpacking because the guy she was with, like, deuced out on her, and she crossed the bear alone. And I'm like, "Yo, you're badass." And we've been best friends since that day.
Awesome.
Yeah. So she's been in Colorado lately too. Big rock climber. But yeah. Anyways, there's a good close call for you.
Yeah. No, you're going to run into that sort of stuff. And it's just, I think trying to be prepared and as much as you can for something like that, like for me anyways, is carrying a little bit of medical stuff. Do you carry anything, or are you going to look to natural ailments, that sort of thing? Like,
I'm going to have to hit you with it depends. So for classes, in general, I'm carrying more gear, and a lot more of that is just medical gear. Part of that is to be compliant with whatever rules are set out by the authoritating body. So, you have to get your certifications for wilderness responder or first aid, and then you've got to have certain things on you. So, like for Boulder Outdoor Survival School, we carry full med kits. We have sat phones, things like that. When I go out on my own, I admittedly don't do any of that. Sometimes I'll bring certain medical things, but it's pretty rare, and I don't carry a sat phone or any electronics, which I know is not that smart. And I've been berated for this, and I know I'm wrong. And
but that's also part of your mental connection, right? Like, it's part of that disconnect.
It is. It's partially money, because I don't have a lot of that, and those things are really expensive, and they're hundreds of dollars, and you got to pay every month to do something. And I'm just like, I feel like it is in most situations. Now, there are situations where it is really useful, but in most situations, I think it's a false sense of comfort.
It really is.
The reality is like self-evac or a partner evac is going to be the answer. That is the right answer most of the time, is get the hell out of the woods, and it's going to be on your own accord. So to think that like you're going to hit a button and somebody like Superman's going to swoop you out of the woods, like, sorry, dog, it just doesn't usually work like that. They're hours and hours away. The guy I saved last year, he almost died. There was a hot day. I'm running with nothing. I didn't even have water, just my sandals, no shirt. I'm deep in this canyon, and I find this guy on the trail. He's about to die. Day hiker, didn't realize it was going to be that hot, had no water. I ran 4 laps to the trailhead and back to him, carrying water back and forth, as the police, the firemen, and the paramedics sat at the trailhead because they said it was too dangerous to go in. So I ran 4 laps back and forth while they just handed me plastic bottles just like this and said, okay, go get them.
Really?
Yeah, I shouldn't be too critical, but I'm like, they said,
why would it be too dangerous for them to go in?
You would have to talk to their police chief, and they called search and rescue. Search and rescue is
it was too dangerous for the officers to go in. They wanted search and rescue to go in after him. Yeah.
Well, and they also wanted the firefighters, so the firefighters got down there on maybe like my second lap. I had already run, 12 miles by this point, and I had no water. So I'm like trying to make sure that I'm not putting myself in danger. And Frank's still up in their mountains. Frank is the guy's name that got stranded. I would hide him in the shade. His lips are dry, puckered. He's not sweating, like completely shutting down. He can only walk like 50 meters at a time, and then I got to find a shady spot in the desert and then go get more water and run back up. And at some point, I called the police, and the firefighters are there, and they're like doing this gear check because my sister's at the bottom. She dropped me off there to go for a run. She's at the bottom, and she's like, yeah, the firefighters just like did a full gear check for a half hour, and then they all changed, like took off all their firefighting stuff. By the time the firefighters got there, they only walked like a half mile past the trailhead, and I had already got the guy out. So for them to get there, it would have he probably would have been dead.
Wow.
And search and rescue never showed up. So the reality is, it's like, yeah, these things are great. There are people that are meant to help you, but it's ultimately up to you.
Yeah, you're kind of self-reliant, and it's also enter at your own risk, right? You can't assume that somebody's going to come rescue you because you have, an SOS button on a device, right?
Sure. So I'm not saying that everyone should, you should use those devices.
I agree with you.
They're useful.
I use the shit out of mine as far as like marking waypoints and stuff, but as far as navigation, I try not to use it because I don't want to be reliant on it.
Okay.
So, like, if I ever need to find my way back to camp, I don't. I guess I've never. I was from a kid, I was raised, to look at certain landmarks and just to pay attention to your surroundings when you're going in, right? I think is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, so especially if you're talking about local stuff, you can use landmarks and macro markers. Those are really good to practice. There's tons of differences with land navigation, and I could go and talk about this for hours, like in its own podcast, but map and compass is lost. So that's a lot of what we practice now at teaching these courses is topography and map and compass. And that stuff gets a lot more serious when you think about traveling over really big expanses.
Big distances, yeah.
So if you miss by an inch on a map, that's 1 to 24,000. You might have missed by, half a mile. So I think it's really good to practice using macro markers. And I think ultimately land nav using map and compass is something that is a good skill to know.
I always carry at least some sort of topo map for the area that I'm in my backpack, just in case. I mean, the Garmin thing does have it on the phone, right? And you can zoom in and you can mark stuff and whatever. But the map is always in my backpack, and I always have a compass too.
That's awesome, man. I think you might be in a minority now. Like, I don't think there's a lot of backcountry hunters like you that are actually applying those skills. What
if your phone dies? I mean,
if your phone dies,
it only lasts a couple days, right?
Drop it off a cliff. It's like,
and you're relying on that. Yeah, it's too much to be relying on. I mean, obviously you could lose your backpack or, the map too, but I think as many tools as you can have to be safe.
As many tools and as many skills, you know.
Right, yeah.
You know, shaping up on those skills, you're never going to regret knowing land navigation. You sure as hell might regret not having land navigation skills. And I think, you know, for primitive survivalists, a lot of people are like, oh, you probably think like the world's ending and you've got a bunker in your basement. And I'm like, I'm not really that type of guy.
That's another one of those misconceptions, right?
Yeah. More hopeful and like, actually, I think things are going pretty well. I like to know these things for nature connection in case I ever need them.
Yeah. And if the world is ending, you guys are going to be the guys that survive, honestly. So
I appreciate that.
Hey, listen, Ryan, man, this has been a lot of fun. We got to wrap this thing up.
Yep.
We've been at it for a little while. You got some stuff to do. I do as well. But,
sure enough.
Man, cheers again. Thanks for coming in. This is super rad. Before we get you out of here, if you got a few more minutes, let's share. If somebody wants to come to one of your survival schools, whatever you're doing with Donnie, your podcasts, your YouTube channel, social sites, let's get all that out. But where would people, if they want to come to one of these classes that you're teaching on survival methods, and what are you guys covering?
Yeah, so I think best place to find me probably that I use is Instagram. You can find me at WYLD Outdoors. It's wild with a Y and ride with a Y. Ultimately, I'm teaching mainly like wilderness skills. So that could be anything from foraging wild edibles, building shelters, sourcing water, hunting, fishing, all the things that you would do in the bush with your friends. We've had a couple courses this year that have gone great, all packed out, sold out. So that's been awesome. Very thankful for that. And yeah, you guys are more than welcome to join us on a class. I'll be leaving to teach in Utah for the next couple months. That school is called Boulder Outdoor Survival School. It's one of the oldest schools, most respected schools in the world. So you guys are more than welcome to check them out. It's bossinc.com.
Okay.
And then, yeah, my YouTube is RYDE TV, and my podcast, which I think we're on we've done 24 episodes now, is Who the Wild Things Are. And again, wild is always spelled WYLD. So, yeah, dude, I had a great time, and that time honestly flew by.
It went by so fast. You'll have to come back for sure, man.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, we'll have you back anytime. And are you going to be in Colorado, or are you leaving Colorado, or what's your plans?
Yeah, so I'll be here for the next week or so, spending some time with family, and then I'll be in the bush for the next 3 months, pretty much no technology, teaching courses, and also doing some solo trips, doing a solo elk hunt, which will be pretty sweet. I made my own bow and arrow, and yeah, I'm gonna go try and get
I saw that. The next time we got to get into some archery stuff. So.
Oh, you already know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We could do a whole podcast about that.
Absolutely. I'm a fanatic about it, but a bit more on the compound side.
Yeah.
But
whatever, pick your poison, man. It's all great.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Go give Ryan a follow. Check out some of the cool shit that he's doing. Jeremy, how we doing over there?
Good, man.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.